Matildas lose 2 to Canada. England can't qualify for the Olympics, not the World Cup. And so much more is happening around the world. Minimal substitutions once again today. And my two favourite humans to talk all things football tactics that we have no qualifications to talk about here. Michelle, Cody, how are we, folks?
You must have You must have a serious lack of people in your life if we are your two favourite people.
No, I don't think so. I understand.
I live in Newcastle, mate. There's only like
there we go. That's all I need. Sorry to our Newcastle followers. Sorry, Jack. Shout out Jack Tyrrell.
All right. Let's jump straight in. 2 games, heavy defeat, and a very stagnant loss, I think I'm going to call it. Let's start with the AstroTurf flogging that we received a couple of days ago.
Which one? They were both on Astro.
Oh, were they? Oh,
yeah.
There we go. That's how close I paid attention today. Did try to watch it at work. Didn't really get away with it. So, 5-0. First up, let's start there. You guys actually, I think, watched the game. I didn't get a chance to. I've just watched highlights. Let's go through our thoughts and prayers and look after each other's mental health. I think, first of all, take it with a grain of salt. We were running a very young, very fresh squad, 2 fresh caps, not a lot of synergy, I would say. But where do you see this floating, Michelle? We'll start with you this week.
Ooh. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this match. I'm trying to find something and it's not there. Okay, it doesn't matter. Anyways, yes, it was very frustrating because I think initially we were all very excited to see these young players come in, right? So obviously, like, Mackenzie Arnold's out, Sam Kerr was out. There's a number of players who are injured, or it's just a loading sort of management, and which is fine and completely understandable. There's been a lot of football that's been played this year, and they had just they would have come from Europe, most of them, to Canada, and then they would be traveling back either today or tomorrow to play club football. So there's a lot of football going around. So there's a lot of loading management happening. And I completely understand. What I don't understand is why you throw a bunch of kids out into the field first up, and then with no experience around them, like obviously Tegan Micah had been playing as our number 1 during the Olympics and was looking to be in that spot for the World Cup. But then with her concussion, that kept her sidelined for, almost 6 months or something. Her coming back in the squad is nothing new. But, having these other kids that are in and around kind of, I don't know, it really messed everything up. And I think, I was talking to Taryn, who was saying, one of the biggest issues was having 2 sixes in the midfield. So you had Claire Wheeler and Sarah Hunter, who were essentially the same position, and they were playing in the same position, which is why the midfield struggled a lot. Then you got Remy Simpson, who, I love Remy, but hasn't been playing all that much football at club level due to an injury and also being on the bench. She's played two halves in the last 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. So you've got all these kids on the field with no experience. You've got 2 aging centre backs, and that's no disrespect to Ivy Lewick and Claire Polkinghorn, but that's what it is at the moment. And I think it's just so unfair to have these girls play out there with no help, and then you're surprised when they lose 5-0 and you're like, oh, it's fine because, it's all about trialing new things. And I'm like, I understand, but this is the second time that this has happened where he's put all these young players onto the field and they get flogged. And then what does that say about their confidence? And what does that say about team chemistry? They're not going to build any chemistry playing with each other if they can't communicate with each other and if they're not even going to start? Like, realistically, this is not looking like a starting 11. This is looking like a mix and match of people that he wants to pick and choose. And then when you compare that to today's lineup, today being the Wednesday match, the second match, it's like, all it does is prove to Tony, oh, I can't trust these players. This is why I choose these certain players, because this side, they can't play, and it's what we saw against the Iran game as well, where he kind of changed the lineup and he's like, nah, I can't trust them. I got to play the other team. And, Josh and I were talking off air, that starting 11 that he would play during the World Cup, and just those normal players, I guess the normal in quotation marks, that's who the players know. And so when they see a lineup that's got Remy and Charlie and Sarah in it, they're going to be like, what is this team? What is it? Who are these players? I don't want to see these players. Bring back Sam Kerr. Why isn't Mackenzie Arnold playing? You're laughing, Cody, but you know it's right. You know it's true.
That's why I'm laughing, because I know you are right.
Yeah, this is the problem, right? Because he's not integrating these players properly. He's not mixing the youth with the experience. He's just putting the youth out and then the experience after. Yeah. Someone else talk.
That was really well said, though.
I think that's our show wrapped up. I think everything's kind of been covered there.
6 minutes, guys. This is the shortest episode. See you next week.
No, look, it's nail on the head sort of stuff. And I guess the part about, fans build connections with certain players that they have during the World Cup, that you see new players come in and it's like, okay, what the hell's going on? I think that's a bit of a deeper issue. I think it speaks to a lot about Australian society in that regard, where we kind of look at the best. We look at our players that are in the WSL, they're top of the game in the sport. And we kind of forget that they do come from somewhere, and that these young players are potentially going to be your next Sam Kerrs, your next Caitlin Fords, your next Steph Catleys. And one thing that kind of stands out to me that you said last week, Michelle, when I was like, oh, I want to see Jada Wyman get a run, maybe a start. And the first thing you said was that would be throwing her in the deep end. That would be a stupid thing to do. And, well, what kind of happened on Sunday? We threw two people in the deep end, and it turned out to be a little bit of a stupid thing to do. As a rule of thumb, I never like seeing someone make their debut at an international team as a starter. If you're making your debut, let it come off the bench. One, it gives them their moment to like, oh, yeah, I'm going out for my first cap. Just kind of have the intention on them. Two, it puts a hell of a lot less pressure on them, because when they are making their debut, they're in a game situation where they can kind of go out with a little bit of freedom. Either they're trying to chase a result or they're trying to hold a result. They're not trying to implement a style of play straight away. That's what he's kind of done with Charlie Rule and Sarah Hunter. And there's probably issues with both of those sections. One, Charlie Rule, I think it was Jess Fleming that she was trying to mark in the first game. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but she had someone running rings around her. And for a debut at an international level against one of the best teams in women's football, we've got to admit, not a great decision. Even if you put a Charlie Grant there, something like that. Like, just someone that's been in those situations before, that maybe can be used to it. Maybe put Charlie Rule in later in the game when the person she's got to mark's got a bit more tired legs, and, ease her into international football. And then Sarah Hunter, like you said, she's playing alongside someone that plays the exact same way of her. You're playing with two centre mids, and when you've got two centre mids that kind of want to sit deep and kind of set plays from deep, the biggest issue that we probably had in that first game is the link between our midfield and our forward line was basically non-existent. You had Chidiac out there, who probably could have done that role if she was playing centre mid, but having her out wide, she was probably a little bit anonymous, and it wasn't really her. It was more the fact that she was in a position where she can't really get into the game. You put her in the middle where the action is, you let her be that link, and let Sarah Hunter or Claire Wheeler kind of sit back behind her. Maybe things work out a little bit better. I'm not a qualified coach. I failed my coaching license twice, so I don't know how qualified I am to make a decision like that. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
There's our credibility gone.
Look, I've made a point to always say I'm not an expert. Like, I can put commentary. I don't know what's going on. In terms of tactical nuances, to be fair, it was about actually developing players, not about trying to set our team up to go out and win. So, yeah, maybe I am still qualified to talk about the latter. But the reality is, I think this isn't a decision that I'm saying and it's going to be a hot take or anything like that. I think a lot of people are seeing it. So if that justifies what I'm trying to say a little bit more, if it gives me a bit more credibility, I don't know. That's up for people listening to decide. But point is, you've put two debutants in a not so great position. I'm not going to say shit position, because they are still quality players. They do still have the ability to go out there and do a job. I won't say that they're the ones that let us down. I think, if anything, it was the senior players that were playing in that game that let us down a little bit. Claire Polkinghorn, I don't think she had a very, very good game, if I'm being completely honest. I don't want to single her out, but let's be real. It probably wasn't her best, and it's kind of been synonymous with some previous performance that we've seen of her in Matilda's jerseys this year. But look, say what you want about the lineup, say what you want about the debutant, say what you want about Tony. I think that first game can be put down to almost a freak thing as well, where we just kind of played really, really bad. I'll be honest, and Michelle, I'll get you to say this on me. That lineup that we put out, whether it's our A side or our B side, that's still a decent lineup. We've got some good players in there. You've got a keeper that's starting for Liverpool. You've got a 160-something time Matilda. You've got Avi Lewick, who's playing regularly for a good Champions League team. Courtney Nevins playing regularly in the WSL. Charlie Rule's playing semi-regularly in the WSL. I know you're making a face about Nevin, but the point is she's playing week in, week out. There's a good side there on paper. So whether it comes down to the travel, whether it comes down to the conditions, obviously Matildas aren't exactly used to playing in snow. We're also not used to playing on synthetic pitches. There are factors there that you can look at and go, okay, yeah, maybe there's a reason why we played shit. The reality is, I think overall that first game was just a really shit game by anyone's standards. And it's not a thing of, that game on its own, I wouldn't put us in crisis mode. I don't think it's something to sit there and go, oh my God, there's a fundamental systemic problem that's in this Matilda side. That first game, and I'm saying first game for a reason, you can probably single out as just a really, really poor game by any standard.
I think, 100%. I think, you've definitely said a lot that I definitely agree with. I think, part of it isn't just that, it's a good side. It's a good side if you're looking at it from a different perspective. It's a good youth side. Yeah. It's if we're looking at it if this is an Olympic squad where, in the men, how you can have a few over 23s players. But if we're looking at this this is a youth team.
It's a 25 squad.
It's almost. A 25s, you know. This is a good side. But in the grand scheme of things, this is a very what's the word I'm looking for? New. It's a very fresh, young side, this is not a side that I would look at and be for the first game, mind you, we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at this side, I'm not thinking this is going to wow me. This is not a side that will wow me. This is a side that I would be excited to see because it's new, it's different, it's it's fresh, it's young. And I was excited to see it. I was like, hell yeah, Charlie Rule and Sarah Hunter, my girls, and Remy Simpson, they're all getting a start. I'm so happy. But also you notice as well, how many substitutions did Tony do in this game compared to the next game? He subbed 6 players.
And look who he brought on as well.
Exactly.
EVE, Fowler, Kennedy, Razzo, Gorry, and Cooney Cross.
Exactly.
It does feel like in that first game he went into damage control. I think that's we can all kind of agree on that.
But imagine you have this. Imagine you have this side instead of Ivy Lewick, you've got I don't know.
But flip it over, right?
Claire Hunt. You've got Claire Hunt in the back line instead.
Yeah.
All right, and then keep Nevin on because obviously we want Steph to have a bit of a rest.
Yeah.
But then maybe put Cooney Cross instead of Sarah Hunter.
Yeah.
And then Sarah can come off the bench. I'd say start Ellie Carpenter for Charlie Rule and then have Charlie come off the bench.
Yeah.
And then, I think you can keep Amy Sayer and Remy Simpson at the front. And then, you can maybe put Chids on the bench or start Chids on the wing, but she's not really a winger, so you could probably put someone else there. But, just small differences can really change the side and make it a side that's you have youth in there and they can come off the bench because, especially in friendlies, they're unlimited. I don't know if Tony knows this. They are unlimited. And
to be fair, I think it is technically 6. I think it's 6.
It's unlimited.
Are you sure? Oh.
In friendlies,
yeah,
you don't have. You can do an entire change of the starting 11.
Yeah,
you can go 11 for 11.
I'm pretty sure for international games it's 6. That's a
anyways.
Anyway.
Regardless, you can use the bench exactly. Shut up, Cody.
It's still a lot more than what Tony made today.
And it's also like it's the idea that you can still have experienced players in the squad and integrate the youth into there so that they can learn how to play. Because otherwise, you're just going to get a 5-0 scoreline and these players not getting off the bench in the next game because Tony doesn't trust them.
Yeah. And I think, like, you look at we've got 3 of our experienced players playing central defense and out on right, surrounded by young players. They're making mistakes, getting ran out by probably, let's say, at least 4 of the quickest players in the game at the moment in Lacasse, Buchanan, Lawrence, and Leon. And they just kind of ran the game from what I saw, at least. And it was just very obvious that we had some kind of older, slower legs, or inexperienced in positioning and things like that. And it just kind of, yeah, I don't know. That's my 5 cents, but very interesting. Let's jump to today's game. One substitution, which I know Michelle is absolutely thrilled about, absolutely loves the thought of keeping the same 11 on the pitch. 1-0 in, I'll say it again, a very stagnant game. For those that bared to watch it through the picture that we did receive, good on you. But you could just tell from the off that this was going to be Canada's game. We had control for the first 5-10 minutes, and we had opportunities, and there was just no finishing to be had. But I think a highlight here is one substitution in a friendly. Cody, you're laughing at me. You can take the mic here. Yeah, I don't know. I feel after what we saw in the World Cup, it's kind of almost clear that the home crowd did make a very big impact on that game against Canada, by the looks of things, because we pretty much fielded the same 11 to an extent and looked very still.
First of all, I'll correct what I said before. I don't know where I got Jess Fleming from. I was talking about Chloe Lacasse. That's who I was running rings around Charlie Rule. Just thought I'd clear that out there. My mistake, my bad. I shall move on. The game that we played, the group stage game we had against Canada and Melbourne, of course, won. It was a little bit overawed by a crowd that we had behind us. It's probably the same situation they had today. You're talking about a big Canadian crowd for Sinclair's last game. There's obviously going to be that social factor in there that we are going to contend with. It's a case of we're not just playing 11 on the field, we're playing 40,000 people in that stadium. They had to face it against us. When they faced against us, we beat them 4-0, just saying. But even when you look back to that game, it probably wasn't a 4-0 game. It was just the fact that everything that we kind of touched in that game turned to gold. That whole day just kind of felt like it was going to be our day, and that's probably how Canada felt today. So there is that aspect of it. I'll be honest, I didn't actually get to see the game live. Unfortunately, I was at work. But you could kind of see, like, shout out Sam Lewis as well. That her updates on ABC were the main reason why I could tell what was kind of going on in that game. And I thought there was something wrong with my computer screen when I kept refreshing and only one sub was showing for Australia. I now know that was actually what Tony did. And it does speak to what happened on Sunday. You talk about, you throw young players to the wolves, they have poor performance. You come into a second game and it's like, okay, do I trust them? If I put them on, is it going to be the same result? The biggest issue that I have with how he kind of set up these two friendlies is he had one squad in one game, one squad in the other. And when it comes to an Olympic squad and you've only got 18 spots, you've got to find a way to kind of integrate your starting 11 with those players that are sitting just behind it. And I don't know if we got a good look of that over these two games. That's probably been my biggest gripe with it all. And today is probably where it's been prevalence. Saturday you can put down to a poor performance. A lot of things were shit in that day. Players just weren't up to standard. You leave that behind. Today it looks like, from all accounts, the side actually played half decently, quite well, at least better than what we did on Saturday. But little things like that are going to frustrate you. We saw in the World Cup as well where we don't kind of use our depth as much as we can. And look, England did the same thing during the World Cup, and they arguably have a little bit better depth than what we do. sometimes it works, but in our case, I think we do need to rely on that a little bit, particularly when you've got players flying halfway across the world to go to Canada, and they're going to be going back to Europe as well. Load management has been a big thing at Tony's, and I don't think that's something that is kind of took into consideration today. You've got a lot of our starting players playing 90 minutes. Now they're going to go to play clubland in Europe, and God knows how they're going to pull up in those situations. At least international football's on pause until February, but probably not sending them back to Europe in the best state that you possibly can. But even aside from that, we're 1-0 down in a low risk game. What harm is it to throw an Amy Sayer in, a Remy Simpson in, a Chidiac in, and see how they go in situations like that, where it's like, okay, if we're chasing a game, who can we rely on to throw in and go, all right, this is your chance, go and be a hero for us. Chidiac showed in the Nigeria game during the World Cup she can come off the bench and make an impact. It didn't work that day, but it came very well close to it. It would have been interesting to see if she could do it today.
Amy Sayer did it a couple of weeks ago in the qualifiers.
Yeah, exactly. And I do apologise if Chidiac started today. I can't remember the starting lineup off the top of my head.
She didn't. No.
Okay, yeah, perfect. I think that's a rough guess. I'd be very surprised if Chidiac was starting when the rest of our team's available or fit. But that's another conversation in itself. Look, there's a few things there that you definitely can be frustrated from today. And I'm not going to say, it's two friendlies. I'm not going to scream alarm bells and say that it's a crisis mode, but it is a recurring issue with Tony. And as much as he's done a lot of good with the national team, there are aspects of his coaching that do, in a nice way, frustrate the living hell out of me.
Yeah. Agreed. Michelle, care to touch on that? Because we know it frustrates you.
What frustrates me is that, we have the bench and he just doesn't want to use it. He just doesn't believe it exists. But it only exists if we've got, your top players, your famous players. That's all that's important to him. And it's so frustrating because it's realistically, Steph Catley was cooked. And this is what happened in the World Cup. She did a leg, in the World Cup, she was cooked against that France game. And the one penalty that we needed her to score and she couldn't because she was tired. She was dead. And then he puts the same lineup in for the Sweden game, and they're all cooked. They're dead. They can't run anymore. That's why you got a squad of 23 players to choose from so that this doesn't happen, so that they rest and they can rotate. For all the talk he does about load management, doesn't really do a lot of load managing because he still plays all the same players. And Cody, like you was saying, a lot of these girls have to go back to Europe, but what about the girls that got to go back to Australia? Tamika Yalla, Jada Wyman, Lydia Williams. What's the point of sending Jada and Lydia there if they're not going to do anything either?
I said I wanted to see Jada play.
It's different with goalkeepers.
Yeah, but it's different you saying it and actually seeing it play, Cody.
True.
Come on. Use your brain. Doesn't that work?
10 minutes. Come on, 10 minutes. Give her a debut.
Yeah, and that would be great in an ideal situation. But I also think in an ideal situation, we would test out a youth side like that, maybe against a team that's ranked, 30 plus, not top 10. Something that's a little bit more, I guess, an ease into senior football, because a team that's ranked in their 30s is still going to be a tough competition. No one's easy and you still have to learn how to play against them, right? Yeah. But for players like Sarah Hunter and Charlie Rule who are coming in and starting out and being around the senior team, this is Sarah's first time. I'm pretty sure this is Sarah's first time in the senior team, at a camp as well. And so it's she's been thrown into the deep end completely. And no doubt, I bet this was an incredible experience for her and for Charlie. And I, 100% believe that they have taken every second of this and really enjoyed the moment of what it is. And, I know I'm so proud of them. Sure, I understand. Oh, my watch.
Siri has something to say too. Hold on.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's a great experience for them. Absolutely. Is it the best experience for them to go out and play in that sort of game or start in that game? Maybe not start. I think they should play in that game. Absolutely. I think that would have been great. But yeah, I just think that this second game was so frustrating because instead of putting in Remy or Amy Sayer, he puts Alana Kennedy to play up front.
Yeah.
You know, and like, what does that say to those two girls who are here as forwards? You know, what does that say to them and their confidence? Sorry, girls. Yeah. Look, because you guys didn't score and you didn't perform at 100% in the last game, I'm going to put our centre back who scores more own goals, and I'm going to put her playing as a striker, because at least she'll header the ball and it might go somewhere potentially. It did go backwards. It didn't go into the goal though. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's no confidence building here, at least from what I'm seeing. There's no confidence building. There's no team chemistry when you've got these young girls on the pitch. It just looks like one big ball of fire. And I worry about what happens when we verse Uzbekistan, because if we play like this against Uzbekistan and he doesn't put any subs on,
Yeah.
it's gonna be rough.
Yep. 100% agree. I think the other thing is, Cody, yeah, this is us. Let's go hypothetical world again, guys. You mentioned 18.
My favorite world.
You mentioned 18 players, right, Cody? You
Yeah.
take the 11 that started today, plus most likely Lydia Williams, and then Macca will probably be back in for Ajata. So there's 13 slots. You got Sam Kerr, and I'm guessing Charlie Grant will probably reclaim their slots. So there's 15. Who are the other three players that you're taking?
I think for the Olympics, you only have to take two goalkeepers, so that probably does help us out
Two
a little
goalkeepers?
bit.
Okay, cool.
I wouldn't be taking.
Who are the other four? We
It's
probably
a tough one
won't
because,
take
look,
Lydia Williams.
You'd take at least another centre back. If I had to pick between Polkinghorn and Lewick, I love Polkinghorn. I like what she's done for the national team. If I'm looking at it based purely on form, I'd probably be taking Avery Lewick. I know there's a couple of young ones coming through, but one last tournament at senior level, I don't think is going to hurt. And if I had to pick between the two, say, best options that we have outside of our two starting centre backs, they're probably still Polkinghorn and Lewick. You pick the best out of those two, at least on form, it's Avery Lewick. Controversial call. A lot of people are probably pissed off about it because she's 38. But look, she's one of those players that kind of feels like she's getting better with age as well. So I don't know if it's as bad a take as what some people may make it out to be. Claire will probably be in there. You take a backup forward, whether it's Seams and Sayer. At this stage, I'd probably lean towards Sayer, but maybe because she is a little bit more versatile. But if it was to be Simpson, I'm not going to be up in arms about it. Simpson's still got a lot of quality herself. I can't actually think who the last one would be. I think you mentioned Chidiak as well, right?
You got Chids, you've got Yallop, you've got Nevin, you've got Rule, Hunter. I said Grant would hold her role.
You'd
Maybe.
think so.
I would say so.
I'd probably have Nevin in there somewhere. It's hard to... that's the thing. Look, no matter what 18 we take to the Olympics, I think we're in a position where it will be a strong 18. We've got a good 23. We've probably got a good 10 or 15 players, maybe even more than that outside of it. Whatever 18 end up going to the Olympics, the point is it's going to be a side that realistically should be... I'm not going to say get gold because that's an outlandish thought that if we were to say is a definite, we might as well see pigs fly, but we can be competitive for it, and we can definitely be competitive for a medal. How you manage it and how you integrate those players to make sure, hey, look, you are one of our top 15 or 16 outfield players. That's what these friendlies are for, and that's probably where the issue comes back to. I don't know how well he's done that. You look at, say, we've spoken a lot about Rule and Hunter because they're the Davidsons. They're the kind of the ones that have been fed to the wolves in these games a little bit, per se. But even players like, say, Nevin, Chidiak, we're still not always seeing how they integrate with our best players. Let's just say you have a lineup like today, but instead of Catley, you give Nevin a chance to run out with 10 first-team players around her. See how she settles into an environment like that. See if she can lift up to that standard rather than constantly being in an XI where it is just players that are kind of at her level that challenges her. It's not just about the external challenge you're facing against Canada, but you're also got to keep up with the standard that your teammates around you are trying to set. That's probably what we've lacked in these friendlies. That's the most disappointing part about it, really. I don't care about results. I don't care. I had a feeling we were going to lose both of these games anyway, just purely because of where we were playing the occasion and the fact that we're on synthetic pitch. I had a feeling that we're going to come out of these two games with a loss, with 2 losses in all honesty. But I don't know if we've taken as much learning opportunities out of this series as what we possibly could have.
Yeah, fair. You mentioned gold at the Olympics. Um, we're gonna talk for the first time about Europe on this podcast, guys, because today was a massive day in terms of the Nations Cup in Europe. The path to the final, at least, got a whole lot. If you look at the World Cup and take the final 4 into the Olympics, 2 of those teams are now no longer in the running for that. That being Team GB or England and Sweden. Huge in terms of the international forecast, and we've got Spain, Germany, France, and who was the last team? I can't remember who the last one was.
Netherlands?
Oh, Netherlands.
Yeah.
Netherlands in the final for 2 of those will get the European slots for the tournament. Massive kind of morning in terms of the England and Netherlands dance for their top spot in their group this morning. Reactions to teams like England and Sweden not being in the mix for the Olympics, and how do you guys see this kind of shaping up? Who would you prefer out of those 4 to potentially come up to or against in a group or in a 16 or further?
Do I put my logical hat on and think, okay, who do we have the best chance of beating, or do I put who I actually genuinely want to see us play? Because it's 2 wildly different answers, in all honesty.
I would love to see us play Netherlands, but I think we would get dominated. To be
I
fair,
reckon we'd be all right against the Netherlands. I reckon we'd be all right
Yeah.
against Germany. Look, a lot of what happens in Australian society that I see a lot, we can be very reactionary. We'll look at a result like this today, and it happened after the Spain game where we lost 7-0 to Spain. Obviously, I'm thinking the game in 2022. We got that 7-0 game, and people were like, "Oh, we're going to struggle at the World Cup. We'll be lucky to get out of the group." Yada yada yada. The next time we played against Spain, we won 3-1. Suddenly, it was like, "Oh fuck, we're about to win the World Cup." The reality was we were somewhere kind of in the middle where we were able to go to the World Cup, be competitive, but we probably did look slightly off winning it. I think we did well to get as far as what we did. The reality is we're probably still somewhere in the middle as well. The first Canada game, like I said, it's a freak thing. It was a shit game. You move on from that. We'll go to the Olympics. We're going to be one of the top teams at the Olympics, I believe, because you're missing a lot
If
of
we
European
qualify.
talent. If we qualify, of course. I don't want to say when because I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to be arrogant. Uzbekistan will still give us a challenge, but I said it to you guys off air. If we lose to Uzbekistan, that is a sackable offence. Let's be real. That's how much I'll say about that. But in this hypothetical world that we do get through Uzbekistan and we do get to the Olympics, we should realistically be one of the top teams there. We'll definitely, arguably, be the best team in Asia. I do think we are a better side than what Japan are. I still think that we're on par with Canada. I'd say we're on par with the US. The only side that I look at on paper and think, okay, they are clearly ahead of us, that will actually be at the Olympics because Team GB won't be there, is Spain. And that's not really saying much because Spain are 1, world champions, 2 are basically built around a Barcelona side that is dominating everything in women's football, and 3 are just really, really fun to watch. I say that with absolutely no bias, despite the fact that I'm Spanish. But in all honesty, if you ask me who I kind of want to face in terms of who would want to play against, I'd say a Netherlands or a Germany. I think we can kind of get past those sides. I'd back us against them. France, I Peter on because they are the home nation. They'll have that backing as well. If I'm being honest about who I want to see us play against, I want to see us play against Spain. I want to see us play against a side of that quality in a competitive game. You guys can maybe look at me like I'm almost committing suicide here. The reality is, if we want to put ourselves in the conversations where we want to start talking about winning major tournaments, we need to have the guts to be able to say, okay, we want to go up against those sides. We want to take that challenge head on. It'd be a massive challenge, but imagine what it would do for us as a football country if we overcame it. Imagine if we were the side that knocked Spain out of the Olympics.
I mean, we were the side that knocked France out of the World Cup, so that's
Imagine
the
if
next
we were the
step.
side that knocked France out of the Olympics in France as well. Like it's obviously not the best time to talk about it because we did just lose 5-0 and 1-0 to Canada. But the reality is we're still a good footballing nation. These are losses that we have a history of putting behind us. I still think that we should be reasonably confident going into the Olympics. Should we be saying 100% we're going to beat Spain? God no. But I don't see why we can't say we'll go. We'll face Spain. We'll take that game head on. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now, Michelle, I know you're not hosting a pity party for Team GB by at any time soon.
Are any of us? I thought we'd be ecstatic that they're missing.
Our group chat was very, very alive and awake at 7:00 this morning, guys, watching England score all their goals while Netherlands.
Can I just butt in there? You two were alive and awake watching that. I was still in bed. I was asleep.
I was not watching. I was just awake because I had to go to work.
But you would still be enjoying the moment.
Yeah, any chance for England to get knocked out of something is hilarious.
I think it's so funny because they did so well. They had to win by at least 3 goals, essentially, right? And they won 6-0, and Netherlands managed in the 90th plus 5 to score 1 extra goal that gave them the goal difference, which so good. And I think it's great because I think the Netherlands game kicked off like a minute later in the second half than what the England game did. So it let it delay a little. So they all had to wait around for the result. But back to Michelle not throwing a pity party. Your reaction to these teams not being around, and in reality, like if we do beat Uzbekistan, is the path easier now from your perspective to another semi or even further?
I think it's easier. I think that's definitely true. Also, hold on. Can I just quickly say that Beth Mead, who plays for England, scored in that game. Congratulations, Beth Mead. We love Beth Mead. And Fifiana Miedema, who plays for the Netherlands, scored the goal to knock England out. For those of you who don't know, they're dating. They're together. And I think that's going to be a very fun
walking back into that
conversation.
house.
Yeah.
Thank God they've got a new puppy, hey. Attention.
The mediator. No, but it's okay. Just on those two teams as well, and those two players, I think it's also it is cool, a cool moment because like both of them had their ACLs done around the same time. They kind of had to go through that rehab process together. And to both be scoring for their country and, you know, essentially a do or die match. And, you know, only one of them was going to be lucky in the end, you know, despite England's thumping of Scotland. But yeah, with Viv scoring, I don't know, I feel very happy for her. And I think that's awesome. In terms of what that means for us, for the Matildas, look, those 4 teams, very difficult, as we all know. Yes, we have beaten Spain, we've beaten France. Recently, that Spain side reversed was a very different side. But that France team that we beat was solid. So that I think that's really positive and a very positive outlook for us. But I also think that I'm going to say a lot of I think they drew a lot of their energy from the crowd. I think, you know, there was a lot of home field advantage in that. And, you know, I think that it was like a good pressure that they had on them at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like, you know, when they're going to be away, they'll be playing in France, you know, like it might be a bit different and it'll be, you know, roles reversed like Cody mentioned with the Canada games. And I don't know who I would want to see us play. I think we're going to have an easier time getting to like a semi-final or a final just purely because of, you know, the lack of investment in the AFC for women's football. I think, you know, there's a handful of teams that have the investment. So meaning that there is only a handful of teams that are good, I guess, for lack of a better word. But yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting. I also wish that these sorts of qualifiers where they're like do or die, where they're important, I wish that this was how they would do qualifiers for the World Cup, because I hate that the World Cup qualifiers are through your confederation tournament, and I think that sucks and is a trash way to do it. I believe UEFA is maybe the only one that does it as like a proper knockout, like World Cup qualifiers. They've got like the Nations League, and they've also got Euro qualifiers and Euros. So AFC, time to step up. Let's get some World Cup qualifiers. Let's get some year-long tournaments instead of all these year-long friendlies that mean nothing.
I mean, that was the whole reason the Nations League was kind of invented, was to create a competitive environment throughout the year for internationals to be taken seriously and give that thing. So I think, considering it's working and we're seeing upsets, and not only that, but the Nations League does have relegation as well, which is something that Asian football needs to get on. But yeah, exciting times. The Olympics are going to be a fun watch now that there's no Team GB. Let's just say that.
Also, it's going to be fun because there's going to be people again.
Heyo.
And I'm not going to have to watch it in a quarantine hotel by myself.
That's right. I got you. We'll make our own hotel. Property buyout.
I don't want to watch it in a hotel.
No, it's all right.
In a pub.
We'll have a pub downstairs. Full street block off. One person I do want to mention that is looking really good. I know this is a Australian podcast, but Lineth Bierenstein is scoring goals like they're going out of fashion for the Netherlands right now. I think she's popped 4 in the last 4 or 5 in the last 2 games. And yeah, coming out of Juve, looking really, really strong. Perfect. So right now, where international football stands is that we are on hiatus until February. You will not see the Matildas on your screens until it matters most, which is our Olympic qualifiers against Uzbekistan. First away in Uzbekistan on February 24th. No. Yes?
I think so.
24th and 28th?
24th and 28th, but being that it is in Uzbekistan, we probably will be watching it on the 25th in the early hours of the morning, which works for me because...
You and your,
Fuck your time zones, Cody.
Yeah.
24th.
Sound like my front page football group chat.
Every single detail.
It'll be the 24th, basically. That morning is, you know what it is. It's like watching the Premier League and you say games on Sunday morning. It's Saturday night.
Yeah. Shut up.
And
I'm agreeing with you.
They were highly speculating that on the 28th we will be back here in Sydney for the final Olympic qualifier, where hopefully things will be nuts. You will probably see all 3 of our faces in the crowd in some respect. Michelle's will probably be on TV, if you know anything about Michelle, at a Matilda's game. But we do have domestic football coming back to our screens this week, folks. So Western Sydney Central Coast kick things off Friday night. This is going to be an interesting fixture, I think. This fixture is going ahead. Western Sydney are allowed to play at home.
Yes,
is that right?
I believe so. Yep.
Well, I've told the club I'm going to be at the game, so better be on.
Lovely. All right. So Central Coast go away to Western Sydney, 7 p.m. Friday. We are looking... Actually, there are some good fixtures this week. Low key. Perth Glory, Melbourne City. That could be a banger at 4 p.m. on Saturday.
Top of the table clash.
And then you got Adelaide Western, which is kind of like a need to get your shit into gear kind of game at the same time.
The Battle of the Uniteds.
And then Victory go away to Wellington. Who we've got another ACL done in Wellington. Just add it to the ACL checklist as well. For those following along with that fun game at home. And then you'll catch Michelle and I, and Cody is not going to be there because he's decided other plans are more important, at Newcastle, Sydney away in Newcastle. Pump for that. Let's go.
Is that on the Sunday?
That is on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm covering a men's game that day. Sorry.
Loser. What's men's football?
Who's that? Are they going to the Olympics? And then to top it out,
Maybe.
Maybe. Maybe.
We're not knocked out yet.
Brisbane play Canberra to round out the week this week. What are we excited for around the world, folks? What games here at home are you looking forward to this week? We've got some massive fixtures coming up in the WSL this week, but what ones are catching your eyes here at home, folks?
Western Sydney and Mariners, purely for the fact that I'll actually be able to get to enjoy it in the stands. And yeah, I know on paper it probably doesn't sound the most exciting, but I just like watching football. I see Michelle shaking her head. But I believe Chelsea and Arsenal are playing, if I've got my rounds correct.
Yes, that was our segue. I asked you to talk about home so I could pull everything up so I knew what I was talking about. Michelle, anything you're excited for except for a away trip to Newcastle?
Well, that's the only thing I'm excited for.
Let's go.
That's
Beers
the
at the
only thing I care
brewery.
about.
Let's go. I'll take you around. We'll go on a pub crawl beforehand.
That's right. I'm getting a lift there. We're carpooling.
Yes.
Road trip up to Newey.
Let's go.
How many he's taken?
I don't talk to opposition fans, huh?
How many of you guys taken up?
How long am I? Oh, it's just me and two other people.
That's it. That's the whole contingent coming.
No, there'll be a few people coming up.
I'll take two.
I need to make a post, but yeah. If you are a Sydney FC supporter listening, come join us in our little cove section. I don't know where we'll stand. We'll be somewhere. Come join us. Come hang. Come sing songs. We want to be more active at women's games, not just singing "Let's go Sydney, let's go." This is not a primary school athletics carnival.
Shout out to me on the other side of the pitch, starting that chant just to pitch.
Oh God!
But
if you're a full ultra,
if you're a podcast fan and you want the chance to meet me or Michelle, we will not be doing meet and greets at game. So that will be $5 per head.
Meet and greets. No, I love my fans. I always take photos 100%. Of my fans.
We'll be there. So if you guys see us, if you know what we look like, come and shout out. You know what Michelle looks like. I'll be probably near there as a neutral. Man City Villa this week. That's going to be a disgusting game to watch. I think Man City will do what they did.
6-0.
Yeah.
6-0 Villa.
Bunny Shaw. 6-0 Villa. Bunny Shaw gets no goals. Biggest game of the week. 57,000 tickets at the Emirates.
Ooh.
57K. Arsenal Chelsea. That is going to be one hell of an atmosphere. I experienced the Emirates last Wednesday for Champions League football, and what a stadium. That is an absolute vibe of a stadium when it's full. Holy crap. So I'm excited for that.
I'll say this. You want to know? So apparently there are Arsenal fans who are buying tickets in the Chelsea away bay because there's no other like lower tier tickets that they can buy. So they're all buying tickets in the away section.
Let's go.
Terrible.
So good. I love it. Brighton play Leicester. That could be an all-out Aussie derby if Remy is back in the lineup. Liverpool play Bristol. West Ham, Everton. Do we have a time limit on how long Macca's out for? Has that been noted?
Last I heard, I think I read somewhere that someone was saying it was a month, but that's not like confirmed.
Shout out to the one person that follows our socials that saw me at the game and was asking me to ask Macca how long she's out for. Didn't get an answer for you. Sorry. She didn't want to chat.
What?
I know, right? Crazy. Last game, apparently we have an Aussie playing for Tottenham still. We weren't aware of that until last week, but Tottenham play United on Monday morning. So that rounds out that. Let's look at Division 1 Feminine. My French accent is fantastic.
It's as good as Ellie's.
I mean, Ellie doing a whole press conference in French. Like, props to her. Cody's learning French for us so he can do the translation.
I actually did 3 years of French in school.
Oh, there we go. Cody's now the official host of the French version of.
Don't expect me to actually be able to speak any French. I think the most I know is like un, deux, trois. Like, yeah.
Un, deux, trois. Look at you go.
Wow. You know plenty of words
and
in
Le
French,
Clean
I
Sheet.
guess.
Le
Le
clean
clean
sheet. Le clean sheet.
The clean sheet?
Wait, where's that from Ellie's?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am just trying to pull up the other games, guys, so we know what's going on this week, but my system's very slow. But Paris, PSG, and Lyon will all be playing against somebody. Crazy, I know. And Real Madrid will also be playing this week. Apparently. I've logged into the wrong account, but we'll figure that out. It'll be on the socials. We are going to try and step up the game now that we are all back in the country for an extended period of time at this stage. For now, we park our yellow and gold and put our club colours back on. If anyone sees us at Sydney Newcastle, not Cody, because men's game, we will be there. Come say hey. We will be back next week with a brand new episode of the Talking Tillies podcast. See you next week. Bye.